let the conversation flow where it goes.
Okay, that sounds fine.
Awesome. Okay. Before I do that, can I take a picture of us? Because I do a really bad job of taking selfies afterwards. I always forget. So
All
can I
right.
take a picture of us
Yeah,
beforehand?
for sure. I'm ready.
Okay. Let me do this. All right. Ready?
Yep.
Perfect.
All right.
Okay. All right. Let's go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Aid to Assets podcast. I'm your host, Tiffany Watson, where I get the opportunity to interview 9 to 5ers who have started and scaled their real estate portfolios and the professionals who help them do it. And so today, I am so excited about my guest today because he has this game mastered and is helping other people get out in these real estate streets too. So, Larick, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you, Tiffany?
I am amazing, amazing. So before we get started, why don't you tell the people a little bit about who you are, where you are, and what you do?
All right. My name is LaRick Calhoun. I founded an organization called To Excel where we empower people to excel through real estate. We're turning that mission into a little bit broader statement where we're going to, or more intentional statement where we're going to empower people to make money in real estate while making a difference. So I started the organization over 20 years ago where I was making a lot of money, but I didn't feel like I was making a big enough difference. So I've been playing with that model a little while. I ended up saying I want to educate, I want to teach people how to make it. And so we've been doing education, coaching, training for that amount of time, but I'm also an active real estate investor. So I buy and flip houses occasionally, and I have a commercial space that I have in Cleveland, Ohio. That's where I'm based out of. But I'm based out of North Carolina now, but I actually have 50 years in Cleveland, Ohio, before moving to North Carolina. So we have two locations. It's myself and my wife to run the organization, and that's pretty much who we are.
Love it. Thank you so much for sharing. And we're so excited to have you on the show. So, y'all, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. As you already hear, Larick got a lot of experience. So, you know how we do around here. Get your notes. We want to take good notes so that way we can execute. So, Larick, before we even jump into how you got started and all of the amazing things that you've accomplished, we like to start with receipts. So, can you tell us a little bit about over the years that you've been in real estate? What's your portfolio like now? How many houses have you bought, sold, flipped, all that good stuff?
All right. So over the years, I mean, it's literally in the hundreds. I didn't even. I probably should have count because I flipped them for myself and flipped them for investors that I was helping to flip properties for. Let's call that portfolio development. So a part of my business was always, it was funding people, coaching them. Even before I was even a coach, I was a loan officer and I was funding people deals. So I helped them flip, and then I was flipping. So it's in the hundreds easily, and there's been millions of dollars that have flowed through this account. And then also the current day. So when I turned 50, right before 50, I got married, and my wife and I decided to liquidate, sell everything right after the pandemic, and move to North Carolina. And we have a property left in Cleveland, and we have a commercial suite that I'm in right now that I recently began the process of purchasing. I'm going to be buying up a block here. So I'm on a street in Cleveland where we're doing a buy back the block strategy. So I'm inside a 4,500 square foot building. This is the one I'm purchasing, and I have another one up the street that's about 7,000 square feet that I'm in the process of purchasing. And then we're going to transform the community. It's kind of have a Black Wall Street feel. So if you went out this door and looked down to the left, pretty much every building you see is owned by myself, our team, I'll call it our network. So it's a true revitalization opportunity. So currently now rebuilding an actual hold portfolio, which will be mostly commercial businesses. And just to tell you a little brief about why and what, I'm a coach and I love business. I love real estate. Residential real estate is okay. A lot of times the people who are in those are in need of a home and they go to their job, which is what you have a large audience of. And then they come home and they make their rent or their mortgage. But sometimes they fall short and they need to be able to figure out how to make money. And then they come and find entrepreneurship and business. I am on that side already. And so instead of me having a residential home where I know they're going to need business at some point or real estate, then my suites are called B suites, where you can be who you're supposed to be. And each one of my rooms, like the salon lofts, are all designated to different entrepreneurs that step out before or after their job, or and they build businesses out of these suites. So I'm going to duplicate this throughout the country, and that's going to be our new rental property. It's just commercial space broken down into suites for entrepreneurs that are trying to be who they're supposed to be.
Wow. Absolutely. There's so much there that you just shared that I want to unpack. One, yes, buy back the block. I'm from North Carolina, and so there are areas like Durham, North Carolina, where we had a Black Wall Street here that people aren't as familiar with. So I'm very familiar with the concept and spent some time in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And so love the idea of recreating what we've had in history that a lot of people surprisingly don't. Well, I guess it's not really surprising that they don't know this has existed throughout our history. So that is amazing. And then also, one of the reasons why I was really excited to have you on the show is because we often do talk solely about residential, not realizing commercial is still real estate. And there is a lot of money that can be made in real estate. And as we are adopting the mindset of, we're not just buying property, we are buying businesses. We are building businesses for ourselves that can free us, like you mentioned, to be whatever it is that we have been called and commissioned to be, instead of just at a job where we may not feel that same purpose and fulfillment. And so I love that you have basically achieved and excelled in one area and have shifted and continue to evolve and grow into another, and are taking people along with you.
Yes, absolutely. That's the plan.
Love it. So let's go back then. Let's go back and get started. Before all of the glory that you have now, what was it about real estate that wanted you to get started from the beginning?
Well, I was standing in front of a barber shop. I was a barber, and I was a barber at the age of 29. And I remember a gentleman stood out front of my barber shop, and I was just about maybe a year in, and I was just soliciting him for hair. I don't even know where he came from to this day. It's like there's no reason for him to have been standing there, so I figured it must have been the creator sending me a message. And he was standing there, and I said, "Hey man, you want a haircut? You know, I'm a barber, you can come on in." He said, "Oh man, I'll come check you out one day." And I said, "Okay." I said, "Now what do you do?" He said, "Well, I'm in from Miami, and I'm just checking out the territory here, and you know, I do real estate." I'm like, "Oh wow, what is that?" I mean, well, I know what it was, but what do you do in it? Because my mom used to do real estate when I was younger, and I didn't pay attention to it then because I was younger, and I was thinking like, why are you buying this really ugly house, and we're kids, and I don't want to stay here. And she bought it and had all this stuff in it, and she's just started fixing it up over the years. And I'm like, wow, you know, in hindsight being 2020, I knew what real estate was, but I didn't know how to get in it. He was saying that he knew what it was, and he was an investor, and that he would fix and sell houses. I said, wow, I would love to do something like that. And he was like, oh yeah, I can mentor you. And I'm like, wow, okay, I would love to learn that. And that's what started it. Him saying that and me having some memory of it kind of created the start for me in it. And he told me he can make, you can make a lot of money in it. I was, of course, trying to make money. I was cutting hair. And that just sparked my interest. So I'll just stop right there just to answer the question specifically.
Talk about divine timing. Yeah. That is amazing. So what was that transition like for you then as you started to get into real estate yourself?
So it was a little rough in the beginning because I was on one path of becoming an entrepreneur in the barber business of 1 year. So I was making a little bit of money, but I was still building my clientele. And then I decided to make this pivot. I want to, change up my little career, if you will, and or hustle. And so when he gave me the opportunity, the game, he said, well, you need to learn about the money. So how do you do that? He said, well, you just got to try to find somewhere, like you could look at becoming a loan officer, or you can do something to learn about the money. If you learn about the money, you can master the business. I'm like, wow, how do you do that? So I sat down, and you talk about divine intervention. One of the guys that was 2 chairs over from me, I was sharing with him what I was inspired about. And the guy in his seat was like, in the instructions of becoming and learn about the money, he said, man, I know a loan officer company. This guy's name is Tony, man. You could probably go over there. And, and he's always looking for other loan officers. I'm like, what's a loan officer? I don't want to be a police. You know what I mean? Like no, it's an officer. It's a, I mean, literally, that's, I'm gonna be a police officer, like a loan. So either way, he connected me with him. I ended up connecting with him. I started a little bit shadowing with this other mortgage company. About 2 weeks later, that was kind of over, because I asked a few people. Tony is where I stayed at, and Tony began to give me the vision. Now, of course, loan officer, if it was able to be quickly attained as a loan officer, you could not, you didn't have a salary. It was just strictly commission, which I was okay with. I've been an entrepreneur all my life. I only had a couple jobs when I was like 18 and 21, so I'm like, okay, I can do this. So I started building. I started trying to learn, and no one around me at that time was making a killing. They were making some money, but they were older. I was like 30 at that time. Most of them were like 40 and up. And so I'm sitting there thinking like, man, I'm really making any money, but I know there's money in here. I just want to be an investor. So I kept on trying to go down this investor path, but they was refinancing houses, first-time home buyer. I'm like, not interested. I'm trying to do fix and flip, so I want to learn about that money. So little by little, that kind of wore me down, because I would go and split my vision between barbering and loan origination with investing as a dream. At about 3 months in, both were struggling, because you'll hear at some point in this conversation on the keys of success is that kind of what you focus on expands. If you focus on two different things, then they both are going to expand. If they're not in the same direction, they can pull you. So I was being pulled, trying to concentrate on one, trying to concentrate on the other, and I wasn't being effective in either one. So it came to a point where 3 months later, I was starting to lose my little apartment. I was behind on my bills, but I still had this vision of becoming a successful real estate person. And I remember the guy, Tony, the owner of the company, pulling me, and he said, man, if you're going to do this business, you're going to have to figure out if you're going to keep straddling this fence. You're hanging with your old friends. You're in your barber business, and then you're coming here trying to create a new world and have a new vision, and it's like straddling the fence. You can't move on that fence. And I got that visual, and I said, man, that's deep. And so I went on and committed to that side, and I ended up letting the barber side go, even though I didn't have any evidence I was going to make money. And I ended up going to another 3 months. It got worse. And then 3 months later, I ended up being able to, start closing deals. But that journey was very challenging in the beginning, and if I would have had some of the knowledge I have today when I'm coaching people, I would have had a better path. So just to answer your question, the journey was a little choppy getting to the point of just even to that step one. The journey of real estate investing had its own challenges too, which I could talk about if you want to go into that. But in that one moment, just making the transition to get into that world, it was a little choppy in the beginning. And had I had a little bit better plan, I could have had a more smoother transition.
What was it during that time that kept you going? Because you mentioned that you decided to go all in with the loan officer, and you were already in a stressful and challenging financial situation when you made that decision. And then it was another 3 months before you actually started to see fruit from what you were doing. What kept you going when it could have been so easy to just go back and cut hair because that was what you had knew was going to work?
Yeah, what kept me going was, my dream of just being, in my mind, wildly successful. I wanted to make a lot of money when I was a kid. I always had, when I grew up, I want to be rich. So my vision is always to be an entrepreneur, a businessman, to be rich or wealthy, and so that vehicle had promised some portions of that dream. And I wanted to hold on to it as long as I could to make it keep its promise. And when I was in the barber business, I could make money, but it did not really feel like I could get rich. When I was looking at real estate and studying it, I felt like, man, real estate gets people rich. It helps them become wealthy. And that made me excited. And so all I knew is that I wasn't going to quit until I can get to that goal. So that's what kept me going, was just the desire to, it wasn't the desire like I have now, which is to empower people. It was the desire to strictly get rich. That's what I wanted. Not wealthy, rich. Just straight up, I wanted to be paid. I wanted the luxuries that came with it. I wanted what I wanted as a little knucklehead kid trying to run around the streets, being bad, trying to hustle. And all those dreams that got shattered along the way, I wanted them, and I wanted them in a legal manner.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now you mentioned that hindsight, of course, being 2020, looking back, there were different ways that you would have prepared yourself for that transition and what you do even when you're coaching individuals now. Can you share a little bit about what that looks like, especially for people who are wanting to make this transition and commit into focusing on real estate?
Yeah, so I would speak to it this way, and although at 52 years old, I've only had 3 years of actual 9 to 5 work experience, I still have talked to and I still resonate with what that looks like because I run my business kind of the same way. So I am employed, I'm self-employed. So when I would share with a person that's on a 9 to 5 and have their savings and they want to be able to stick their toe in the water, is to, number one, get a coach or mentor. It doesn't have to be a paid coach. You could just get a mentor and do sweat equity. If you have the means, then get a paid coach, because a lot of times where you put your money at, you focus better and it focuses better on you because it owes you. But if you don't have the means, I have been able to start with just mentors, and I use my sweat equity and time to shadow that person through the experience. So that's the number one. Not read a book. It's fine reading a book and all that, but if you really want to know the breadth of what it is that you're getting ready to do, because a book doesn't give you the emotion or the experience. If you get with a mentor or a coach, they're going to guide you through, and if they're good at what they do, they're going to help you find a lane based on your strength. If you are in a business where you're an administrator, accountant, someone that manages things, then you may want to start off with landlording, managing properties, because you're going to have transferable skills. If you're a person that's in the business of sales or empowerment or motivation or influence, then you may want to get into wholesaling or a real estate agent or something that has to do with using that gift. If you're a person that deals with big numbers and big business and big numbers in the corporation because you're managing $20 and $30 million budgets, then you may want to come out the gate looking into new construction, because you can start in any of those paths. So all of those, if you're a service-based person, you're like, look, I'm just really good at cleaning, then it's still it's a multi-billion trillion dollar industry. You could come in and say, I'm going to start off cleaning everything that somebody makes and make my money to be able to own something. So I would start off with a mentor or a coach, so I can then add to the second thing, which is called a plan. Because if you have a mentor or a coach, they're going to help you with the vision, and then a vision then can come down into a step-by-step plan, and then from there you just lay out how long it takes to get that plan achieved, and that coach or mentor can help you validate what that looks like. That's where I would start for those people. If I had hindsight, I had a little bit of that, but my pants was on fire. I need to make money yesterday, and I just did not resonate. And next thing you know, it's 23 years later, and I'm like, shoot, some of the bumps and bruises, it took me back. They call it fast as slow and slow as fast. I hurry up and got to doing $500,000 a year at one point in my loan business and flip business, but then I turned around and lost it all in '08. So I had to start over. You know what I mean? So it's like, well, shoot, if I'd have started, I could have did $200,000 a year and coasted to $1 million a year had I had a little bit more patience and coaching and plan.
Yes, absolutely. So y'all in the comments, put vision, then plan. And I'm really glad that you made that distinction, that our vision and our plan are not the same things. The vision is just the big, the grandiose, what do we want our life to be like? And the plan, the steps of how we are actually going to make that vision come to life. So I love that differentiation.
Yeah.
So you're working as a loan officer now, so you're seeing the different many assets that you can do, or avenues that you can take in real estate. When was it that you actually started investing in your own properties?
It was about, now I tried to invest in my own property around 5 months in. Even though I was struggling with the loan business, I tried to get a hard money loan and buy a property, fix it up to sell it. And it was going, I think it was even 4 months in, and it was going kind of bad. I didn't have enough experience, and I was kind of getting stuck in it. That's why my mentor, the owner, came along and said, "Rick, it's like by the time you sell that property, you could have done X, Y, Z in loans and made this amount of money. So I started about 4 months in on the first project, got that investment done. I did successfully get it sold. It was a lot of loss in it, a lot of pain in it, but I did get it sold. When it's sold, let me make sure I got the timeline correct. I may be a little bit off of that timeline. I'm just sitting there thinking that the actual first flip was after I made the loan, because I remember him asking me about my focus. I think I was trying to get that flip, and I ended up actually doing it after the January month that I ended up making this massive amount of money. No, it was before. I take it back, because that's what actually made me really click into what he said, because I was trying to flip that property. I did make some money. It was about 4 months in, and it didn't make as much money as I was supposed to make. And then when he told me to start really focusing on the loan business to just make it consistent, that's when I started like bringing them both together. So right in that 4 to 6 month area is when I did my first flip.
Okay, so let me make sure I have this right, because you were about 3 months, you were straddling the fence when you were you were still cutting hair, and then you were being a loan officer, and then you decided, I'm going to double down and fully focus on being a loan officer. But you were still also trying to recoup from the financial challenges that you were having, right?
Yep. And so, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and so I remember trying to be, I was being thirsty, and I got with a mentor, and I tried to get in that property, because back then it was easy to be like, no money down. And the guy was like, well, man, you could get more money down and flip this property. And I remember getting into it because it didn't actually sell until after that one window where I actually started making money, because I got in it. I got my little appraisal done, and back then you could roll the appraisal into the deal. So I got the appraisal in there done. I'm in there. They're doing the draws off the property. I'm still not making any money. I got mortgage notes coming, but the mortgages back then you would pull them out the actual hard money loan. So I'm trying to move that, but that's not saving me. It was actually bearing me more. And that's when the guy who was running the loan company was like, man, you need to focus on these loans. And that's when I started doing these foreclosure. That's where I learned how to do short sales.
Okay.
I started negotiating all these deals for this one lady. I think she had about 25 houses, Shirley Morton. And she had all these houses that were going back to the bank. And I remember talking to her about if I can do what I learned was short sale to get them out of foreclosure. And that, which I'll go into shortly, but that allowed me to start getting some inventory up against the loans that I had written for people. And that's where I started to make some money. At January, and was that 2001, is when I started actually making money. I believe that flip ended up closing shortly after that. But yes, that's that's kind of the timeline path there. I hadn't even talked about this stuff in a while. It's like 20-some years ago, but now I'm just kind of calculating it out. But yes, that's when I started doing my first flip, somewhere in that little window right there.
Okay. So now talk to us about, because it sounds like your focus was still divided a little bit, because you were in the loan officer, but you knew you wanted to do the flip.
Yep.
And it wasn't until you really sat down and said, okay, I'm going to work with Shirley and get these properties under contract or with the short sales completed.
Yeah.
And that supplied the finances you need to finish the flip, get that sold, and continue to move.
Right.
Talk to us, especially for people, we have a lot of listeners who they so desperately want to get that first deal. They are anxious to get in the game, and it can be difficult to know what is the right point and how they need to prepare themselves. Can you share a little bit about how you coach your students on that part of their journey?
So I always tell people, and I do the little 1 + 1 equals, and they say 2. I say, no, it equals 11. Look closer. I always tell them, partner up with somebody. That's the fastest, easiest way to success in real estate. Even if they're novice, even if they're all starting together, because the leverage, another principle, leverage equals speed. Leveraging each other's energy, time, financial resources, and then going after that first property is invaluable. Especially if you happen to have someone that maybe already has the property, maybe They have the money to buy the property, and then you have the money and a team to bring the money to fix up the property, and then you all go through the experience. Because people, the reason why they don't pull the trigger, because a lot of newbies and only about 20% pull the trigger in the first 2 to 3 years. The reason they don't pull the trigger is because of fear. And the reason the fear is there is because you haven't experienced it, right? They say faith comes from hearing and hearing and hearing, and it's also doing and doing and doing. So the more that you actually engage in it, that's why mentoring and internships are in college. You know, they allow you to go intern so you can get over the hump. In medical practice, go through these hours first. But in the real estate, people just want to go straight to surgery, straight to medical, straight to the practice without having the opportunity to be able to partner with someone that can work through the study groups, you know, the mentorship, all those different things. So those people that just want to get started, start with somebody that's already doing it. You can find them at a local real estate investors association. Those are everywhere, right? You go plug into one, you find somebody in there that raises their hand on newbie night, or you find someone that raised their hand on experience night that says that, hey, I'm experienced, I got all this going on, see how you can serve that person, or see how you can partner with that person. Hey, let's go be afraid together. You know, so, it works, and you can draw a small group of people together, and like you said, go after a property, and after that one, you may split up the revenue, but you also cut in half the fear.
Cut in half the fear and gain the experience.
And you gain experience.
Now tell us, what was that principle again? You said leverage and what?
Leverage equals speed.
Leverage equals speed.
Yep.
Okay.
So you leverage another person's time, and it speeds you up to that lesson. You start on your own, right? It's like you get out the house and you start walking to get to a mile destination. It'll take you whatever amount of time it takes you to get to that mile. If you turn around and ask somebody to give you a ride in their car, you leverage their car, and you got there in probably, 3 times the speed faster. So, and the same thing is like my vehicle is already moving that way. You're just now getting started. Get in my vehicle and I'll get you to that destination a little bit faster. So leverage always equals speed.
Leverage always equals speed. I love it. I love it. Okay. Now talk to us a little bit, because you were doing this flip, and now at this present one, you've done hundreds of flips. Talk to that new investor that wants to take on their first flip, but like you mentioned, the fear still has them a little paralyzed of the unknown of what to expect when trying to renovate this property.
So you want me to share with how to overcome the fear part?
Yes.
Okay. So one of the things is the more you know, the more fearless you become. So studying everything from the what it's going to take, because in sales you have to understand your product, and same thing when you're talking about getting into real estate investing. So when you get in, you want to start going to your Home Depots. You want to start learning about how much material costs. It's one thing for you to tell somebody, hey, that quote includes material and labor, and they say, yes, it does, but you don't know how much the material or the labor actually costs. So then you're at the helm of at the mercy of their decision. So if you go out and you find out a 2x4, and you find out how much that 2x4 costs, you find out how much a sheet of drywall costs, the difference between the drywall, the green board, why is this drywall green and why is this one not? Why is this one thin? Why is this one thick? When do I use it? Some of the simplest things create the biggest mistakes. What is a drywall screw? Do I use a nail in drywall? How long should it take in order for someone to put up the drywall? It's on Google. It'll tell you how long it should take. So these are things that you can familiarize yourself with, that when you go into a space, you can say, I know a little bit of something about this. So if the person putting down your floor, a true story, and this was after I was experienced 18 years in the business, someone put down a floating floor, the vinyl floor. I just know they call it floating vinyl. I had 2 different people that call themselves experts put down these floors, and both of them did it wrong. One of them had the nerve to glue the floor.
No.
I didn't know until the end. He's like, oh man, no, you glue it this way so it stays steady. And I'm like, nice. It's really looking good. The word was floating. And even with me knowing that you're to do the research, I'm thinking at this point in my life, I'm like, all right, just let him put the floor in. He's an expert. Sometimes a person can be an expert. You have to be the expert. You have to know about what you're doing, at least a little bit. Learn a little bit about, play a video on floating floor before you hire a person to put it in the floating floor. It's 4 minutes of a video. But now you know that the second person, what he did is he put the actual flooring all the way up against to the edge of the wall. Well, it needs to float. So the heat came and it buckled the floor. I come back in there and the floor is up because of the material and the condensation, and there was no room to expand and contract, so it just popped. So the whole floor, so I had to go back and cut the floor edges to relieve the pressure.
Oh no!
That's something I could have learned.
More money,
more money, more time. And it was after a realtor walkthrough of my fabulous home that was ready to go. You know, so these are things, so I can't stress enough. The fear will release the more you know about what that looks like, the more you know. How much is a furnace? Someone tell you $4,000, it's okay, that could be in a retail home. But as an investor, how much is a furnace? So you go and you find a local furnace store and they say, well, a furnace could be at 90 efficiency or it could be X 70, 80. And you say, well, it's ranging $700 to $1,200 to buy a furnace, and anywhere between $600 to $1,500 to put a furnace in the investor world. So
Yeah,
those numbers
right,
be
right,
way
right.
different than if you're talking to somebody from Lowe's from a house that you own own out in suburb land. But if you carry that same you carry that same philosophy over to that investment property, you're gonna lose. So those
Yes,
are different.
absolutely.
That's wholesale pricing versus retail consumer pricing. So I'm saying that to say, the more you know, the more you learn, the more confident you're going to be, and that will reduce your fear, because the fear is coming from lack of confidence.
Right. Hold on, I'm gonna stop us for a second because I just got a pop up that your browser is out of storage. Do you see that on your screen? And we can edit this part out.
Yeah. Is that on my side or yours?
It says it's on yours. So let me pause this.
Oh.
Hold on. And then if you will refresh your browser, and
Okay.
let's see if that correct. And it's okay. We can, like I said, we can edit all this out. So it's okay.
Right. So refresh it by just hitting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, let's see. Reload the site.